In the lawless, cutthroat days of post-Civil War America, few figures loomed as large or as decisively as Jay Gould. While titans like Cornelius Vanderbilt, John D. Rockefeller, and Andrew Carnegie built empires in steel, oil, and railroads, Gould mastered an art far more elusive and dangerous: financial manipulation. Wall Street was his battlefield, and his weapons were his intellect, his ambition, and a deep, sometimes terrifying understanding of human nature. Rising from a poor, tragedy-stricken childhood, Gould would amass one of the greatest fortunes in American history, bending markets, railroads, and even political power to his will. While others saw opportunity in physical infrastructure, Gould saw something more intangible but equally powerful: the ability to control the flow of money, speculation, and information. By the end of his career, he had manipulated some of the greatest men of his time, engineered Wall Street panics, and controlled vast swaths of American railroad network. Despite his success, his ruthless methods left a legacy steeped in controversy, admired by some and condemned by others. Jay Gould remains one of the most enigmatic and polarizing figures in American capitalism. Jay Gould's early life was defined by loss. Born in 1836 to a modest farming family in upstate New York, Gould's childhood was shaped by death and hardship. At just 4 years old, he stood by his mother's bedside, her face pale and lifeless after a bout of typhoid fever. This was the first in a series of devastating losses. Over the next few years, he would lose his sister and 2 stepmothers to illnesses, while his father descended into alcoholism, unable to cope up with the overwhelming grief. Trapped in this world of despair, young Gould found solace in books. His father, now unpredictable and often cruel, once locked Jay in a cellar for misbehaving and forgot him there for hours. But the boy who emerged from the cold darkness was not broken. He was hardened, steeled by his determination to escape the grim life that seemed to surround him. At just 13, Jay fled his troublesome home, armed with nothing but his fierce ambition and his sharp mind. Teaching himself surveying and basic accounting, he began charting land in Ulster County, selling his hand-drawn maps to a local farmer. These small victories ignited a fire within him. By 16, he had earned his first small fortune, but more than that, he had tasted the freedom that money could bring, a taste that would drive him ever to greater heights. In those years, as Jay mapped out the rural contours of the Ulster County, his desire for control began to bloom. Surrounded by loss and death, he learned that the only way to escape powerlessness was to seize it whenever he could. It wasn't just ambition that drove him, it was survival. By his early 20s, Jay had already experienced his first real taste of business success, partnering with one of the wealthiest men in New York, Zadok Pratt. Pratt, a titan in the tanning industry, saw potential in young Gould, investing as much as $120,000 in a tannery that Gould would manage. Pratt had no idea that his young partner had ambitions far beyond the world of hides and leather. While the workers toiled in the hot, grimy tannery, Gould's mind was elsewhere, on the bustling streets of New York City. He visited Manhattan frequently, walking down Fifth Avenue and staring up the grand mansions of the city's elite. The wealth, the grandeur, and the power that resided in those homes captivated him. But what intrigued him most was not just physical wealth of the factories and industries. It was the invisible hand of markets that controlled them. Gould soon realized that true power didn't lie in production, but in controlling the markets that moved products. The tannery business, with its labor and raw materials, was too slow for his taste. He craved the speed and the excitement of New York's financial markets, where fortunes were made and lost in a second. Pratt, sensing Gould's growing restlessness, offered to buy out his share of the business for a paltry sum. Underestimating the young man's tenacity, Pratt believed Jay would never be able to raise capital to buy him out instead. But Gould was not to be underestimated. He navigated the financial swamp of New York, securing funding from wealthy traders who were impressed by his daring. With $60,000 in hand, Gould returned to Pratt, who was stunned. Gould had outmaneuvered him, taking control of the business without risking a single cent of his own money. This was the first of many such moves, a masterstroke of strategic brilliance that would define Gould's career. Leaving the tannery business behind, Gould turned his attention to the world of high finance, Wall Street, where fortunes were made and destroyed in a blink of an eye. Gould saw Wall Street as more than just a market. It was a battlefield, and he intended to become the most feared general. At just 24 years old, Gould orchestrated one of the most infamous financial schemes in history, an attempt to corner the gold market. Partnering with the flamboyant and equally ruthless Jim Fisk, Gould's plan was to buy up as much gold as possible, driving up the prices and profiting from the soaring value. The scheme caused panic, as businesses that relied on stable gold prices were thrown into chaos. On September 24, 1869, Black Friday, the US economy teetered on collapse. President Ulysses Grant ordered the release of the government-held gold to stabilize the market, leading to a dramatic crash. Lives were ruined and businesses were destroyed. The streets of New York were filled with men who had lost everything. Overnight, bankers who had once held fortunes wept on the sidewalks. The ripple effect spread far beyond Wall Street, bankrupting businesses that had relied on a stable economy. Yet, despite the carnage, Gould walked away wealthier than ever. His ability to evade the consequences, despite lawsuits and investigations, became legendary. He was arrested 3 times but never spent a night in jail. The man who could bend markets to his will was proving just as untouchable when it came to the law. Fresh off his victory on Wall Street, Gould turned his attention to the industry that would come to define his career, railroads. He quickly realized that whoever controlled America's railroads controlled the arteries of the economy. Gould's first major foray into this sector led him into direct conflict with the era's most powerful industrialist, Cornelius Vanderbilt, in a struggle that would become known as the Erie Wars. Vanderbilt sought to take control of the Erie Railroad by buying up shares, but Gould had anticipated this move. Using a clever loophole, Gould issued thousands of new shares, diluting Vanderbilt's control and siphoning off millions in profits. The battle wasn't just financial, it was personal as well. Vanderbilt, who had never before been bested, was enraged by Gould's audacity. The two men, both titans of the industry, stared each other down in boardrooms and courtrooms alike, each vying for ultimate control. Vanderbilt tried to have Gould arrested, but Jay simply fled to New Jersey where New York authorities had no jurisdiction. For months, the two titans engaged in a high-stakes game of bricksmanship, bribing judges and politicians to gain the upper hand. This wasn't just a financial battle, it was a war of wills. Gould, with his youth and cunning, stood toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful men in the world and emerged victorious. The public watched in fascination, newspapers devoting daily columns to the spectacle. This wasn't just corporate struggle, it was a national drama playing out before the eyes of the America that was beginning to realize the true stakes of the industrial power. In the end, Gould's victory signaled more than just the defeat of Vanderbilt, it signaled the rise of a new kind of power, the financial manipulator who could outwit even the greatest captains of the industry. By the time he was in his mid-30s, Jay Gould controlled a staggering 1/6 of the nation's railroads. He was no longer just a financier, he was a kingmaker, wielding power over the nation's most vital infrastructure. But Gould's ambition didn't stop at transportation. He understood that control over communication was just as important, if not even more. In 1876, Gould took over Western Union, the largest telegraph company in the country. This gave him control over the nation's communication lines, allowing him to consolidate his influence even further. By acquiring Thomas Edison's revolutionary quadruplex system, which allowed multiple messages to be sent simultaneously, Gould cemented his dominance in both transportation and communication. Edison himself would later remark on Gould's extraordinary intellect, describing him as relentless in his pursuit of information and power. Gould didn't seek any public adulation or recognition. He sought only one thing and one thing only: control. And by controlling both railroads and the telegraphs, he effectively held the keys to the American economy. But no amount of wealth or power could stop time. By his 50s, Gould's health was failing. Tuberculosis gnawed at his lungs, and the relentless stress of his businesses had taken a toll on his body. His beloved wife had died young, leaving him to raise their 6 children alone. Yet, even as his body weakened, Gould's ambitions had never faltered. His final project was the consolidation of the Union Pacific Railroad. He envisioned a truly transcontinental railroad that would stretch from coast to coast, connecting the entire nation. It was a culmination of a lifetime of ambition, and Gould was determined to see it through despite his failing health. It was too beautiful to let go, he once remarked about his vision for the railroad. In December 1892, Jay Gould died at the age of 56, succumbing to tuberculosis in his Manhattan mansion. His estate, valued at nearly $100 million, was left to his children, though none would ever rival his genius or his ambition. Gould had built an empire from nothing, but at the cost of his health, his reputation, and perhaps even his soul. Jay Gould's death marked the end of an era, but his legacy continues to shape modern finance and the industry. While men like Vanderbilt and Rockefeller were hailed as captains of the industry, Gould remains a more elusive figure. Mark Twain famously condemned him for corrupting American values, while others praised his unparalleled strategic mind. Was he a hero of American capitalism or its greatest villain? Gould's life was filled with contradictions. He was a family man who spent little time at home, a visionary who saw the future of the America's economy, and a ruthless manipulator who had bent the rules to his advantage. His influence still reverberates in today's financial markets, where speculation and manipulation continue to play a central role. For the better or for the worse, Jay Gould changed the course of American history. He was not just a financier, but a man who rewrote the rules of the game, and in doing so, he became Wall Street's greatest manipulator, forever remembered in the history of American capitalism.